We have been studying the parables, and so we have made quite a bit of progress in that endeavor. And so we are about halfway through this quarter, and so we've looked at a lot of the favorites that we know and love, and we'll look at some of those this morning. I had a little recap that I wanted to do, a couple little things I was going to add to our class from last week and Wednesday night. But Kevin did such a thorough job on that Wednesday, I won't do that. I might add something at the end if I have time. But we talked about the Good Samaritan, and we said that the purpose of parables is to challenge the hearer to hear an eternal truth that will elevate. For one, it will elevate their thinking, and it'll do so by helping them see something that they can relate to in this physical world to something that's spiritual, that would normally not be able to be seen or understood at all. I mean, if it weren't for God in heaven revealing His wisdom to us, we wouldn't have any clue. We would have a concept of God, we should be able to, according to the creation itself. Romans 1 tells us the Gentile is without excuse. Nobody who has ever lived has an excuse for not believing in God. Because he says that the creation itself shows not only that there's a creator, but teaches us aspects about the Godhead and His power. Of course, I mean, heavens declare the handiwork of God, but it also teaches us a bit about His personality. You don't just have one. You got to have, you got to have more than one. You got to have, propagation. You have to have a unity amongst different parts, and that's what the Godhead is. It's different parts in one God, different personalities within one God. And you actually can start to see some of those qualities in the creation. We won't go into all that, but I'm saying God's ways are higher than our ways, and we can't even fathom. So what we need to realize is that the very creation itself is a picture in many ways to the heavenly realm. We said that when Moses was on the mount, and I saw some interesting, I studied something interesting here a couple of months or so ago about this. We don't know that many details about Elijah, but we know some about his fast, and we know Moses fasted for 40 days. We know that Christ had fasted for 40 days, and they experienced some wonderful communications with God and revelations. And when Christ was on the Mount of Transfiguration, He was with Moses and Elijah. And it says that they were talking the things concerning the kingdom. And Moses, when he was on the Mount of Transfiguration, it was on the Mount. I keep saying Mount of Transfiguration. You'll see why in a minute. It says that he received a pattern of things to come. He received a pattern of heavenly things. So even the dimensions of the tabernacle, the dimensions and how it was made and what it was made of and what they were supposed to do in it, it says that was a picture of heavenly things. Well, if those are a picture of heavenly things and it's a foreshadowing of the church, then surely the church is a picture of heavenly things. And what happened at Christ's death? The veil of the temple was rent in twain. Now we can look into the most holy place. That's what we get to do. We get a glimpse in the Christian age of looking into the most holy place. So we can see things a little bit more clearly if we look for them. And Christ has revealed them through parables and through heavenly teachings. And so these heavenly pictures that are symbolic, or that these earthly things that are symbolic of heavenly things will reveal things to us that we would not normally be able to conceive in our own minds. And so we'll look at that at the latter part of this class more than the beginning. And I'm going to make this slight differentiation. These heavenly things, they have to be revealed, over time, or they don't have their meaning. We could all say amongst ourselves, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I thought my parents, my mom, my dad, thought they hung the moon. I thought my dad was a superhero. Then I got to be a teenager, and then I didn't think he knew anything. I thought he was the dumbest man on the earth, old codger, And then I got to be an adult, and I thought, boy, wisest man in the world. Had kids, boy, he was a hero. A superhero. Different stages of life take you through different maturation opportunities. And so that's what we're having here. And there were those in the old law that longed to understand what the things concerning the kingdom were. And Moses was one of those people. The angels even desired to do this. And so when Moses is getting this revealed to him, some pose, or at least one person that I read poses, that maybe when Moses and Elijah and Christ were at the point of Mount Transfiguration, that might have all been the same time as when Moses was on the mount. Elijah was in the mount, because Moses and Elijah went to the same mount, by the way, if you remember that from geography. Behind the veil, there is no space and time. So Moses and Elijah were in this place with God, and we're seeing the things concerning the kingdom, this eternal place, and Christ is there. So either Moses and Elijah, somehow they were in this spiritual realm, but they were still talking about the things still on this earth. So regardless of where they were in time and space and history and all that doesn't matter. What matters most is that they were united in the things concerning the kingdom. And so I'm taking us back because we said that John the Baptist picks up teaching, preparing the way for the kingdom, baptism, for remission of sins, kingdom of heaven is at hand. Christ comes and starts teaching the same thing, and we've been studying the parables. We said that we haven't been studying them in order, but now we kind of jump back. Because we're going to look at the story of the wise man and the foolish man. We're missing some in our adult class today, but I'm going to do this for the sake of a number of reasons. For one, it's a wonderful lesson. For two, it'll help us be reminded of something that Christ taught us that we've already looked at. For three, somebody asked me if I was going to do it. And for four, I did something similar at a congregation one time, and some elders got on to me, and I didn't think that was right. So I'm going to do it here today because I know our elders won't have a problem with it. We're going to sing a song to start our class this morning. And so I want everybody to sing it. I want everybody to participate. If you don't, that's on you. I won't call you out, but I'll call you out to your face when we're done. We're going to sing a children's song. Let's just sing it. Foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand, and the rains came tumbling down. Oh, the rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the foolish man's house went. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock, and the rains came tumbling down. Oh, the rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the wise man's house stood firm. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ, and the blessings will come down. Oh, the blessings come down as the prayers go up. The blessings come down as the prayers go up. The blessings come down as the prayers go up. So build your house on the Lord Jesus Christ. I was going to try to do some sign language on that, but the way we do it doesn't line up just exactly like official sign language, so I got a little confused there if you saw me stuttering. I did something similar after a sermon one time on the Christian Bundle of Sticks. Y'all have heard that sermon before. And some elders got on to me, and I was really surprised. Big congregation, y'all know them. I'm not trying to call anybody out, but they kind of got on to me a little bit. And I thought, why would you get on to me about that? You know, I don't know if they thought it was childish or they didn't go into it too much, but remember what Christ did when the children were coming to him and the apostles said, no, don't, we don't have time for that. Christ said, oh, whoa. Oh, yeah, we do. Bring them to me. You think Jesus would hesitate to sing a song like that? You know, we used to didn't have songbooks. They never had songbooks for thousands of years with little notes and different parts. They sang together. They usually sang all the same notes, all the same words. You could learn it pretty quickly. For the purpose of teaching idea, that's what a song is for. It's to uplift or teach. And so we're teaching. I wanted to do that because I wanted them hearing us singing that song in here. The children need to know that you never outgrow the simple teachings of Christ. You never outgrow it. And Christ begins his teachings of something similar. I wouldn't necessarily call this a parable. The scriptures don't call this a parable. If you want to look at Matthew chapter 7, we'll start there this morning. But this idea of building on the sayings of Christ or the words of Christ. You remember that in parables, Christ, it says that many times he'll say, and he spake this parable unto them, saying, and he spake another parable unto them, saying. And so a lot of times we can see that he was specifically teaching a parable. We know it fulfilled prophecy. We know that it was specific, a specific time and had specific purposes. It doesn't always call them parables that we oftentimes say it's parables. Regardless, it's a picture or imagery that we can see. And so Christ has already talked about light and the candle and birds and flowers. And so he's been using some imagery. This is the beginning of his ministry. This is on the Sermon on the Mount. So this is one of the very first large teaching opportunities that Jesus had, where there was a great crowd. People were coming to him. He was getting some disciples. He was choosing his apostles. But here, there's great thrones coming into him. And so he's teaching them fundamentals. Remember his prayer in verse 10 of chapter 6? He said, thy kingdom come. He's praying to God. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So here the kingdom of heaven is on the way. He's asking God for it. And he's telling them, remember, again, we said the purpose of a parable is to teach. To teach them a concept, a heavenly concept, but also make them look inside themselves and to make sure it was them and their relationship with God. So he's going to teach that in several different ways. And so in this particular passage, let's just read it. Matthew 7, beginning in verse 24. There's just a few little short verses here. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Notice verse 28 and 29. Let's just go ahead and finish the chapter. And it came to pass when Jesus had ended these sayings, so here it just calls them sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine. Seems kind of simple to me, doesn't it? At least what we just read. For he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. So he taught in a way that wasn't just parroted. He was teaching them in a way that showed, just like he did when he was 12 years old, people were astonished, like, what'd you ask? I've never even thought about that. You know, let me see if I can answer this kid's questions. You know what? You can quote what? From the time he was 12. And so his mother Mary even knew what he was up to. And she couldn't, she just had to follow him away, like God's doing something in his plan. But now he's revealing to them this kingdom that's right before them. And he ends this particular sermon, we want to call it, with saying there's a call to action. But the action is by noticing that what he's saying is truth. So if you can, we all, and God put this within us. We have innate little abilities to think and to reason and to use our emotions. And most of the times, unless they're really good at it, we can kind of tell if somebody's lying to us, or at least in hindsight, we're like, yeah, I missed that red flag. Well, they took me on that one. I had a feeling that they weren't really, being straight with me. I gave them the money anyway. A lot of times we'll have that. But most of the times we can differentiate between just truth and false. Unless we've seared our conscience, or the world has gotten to a place where they call good evil and evil good, and we kind of see that today. So Christ is speaking in a way that was, he wasn't overpowering them in authority, although he already driven the animals and the money exchangers out of the temple. Pretty bold, pretty strong, but he also is being gentle in the way that he's engaging those that are sinful people. And so he's telling them, if you hear these sayings, and again, most of the parables and the teachings, and they're not most of them, they're all for us. But a lot of times he'll say, the kingdom of heaven is likened to, the kingdom of heaven is likened to, and so he's showing them about the kingdom. Here, he's saying something about the individual. Notice, whosoever hears these sayings of mine and doeth them, he doesn't say anything about that individual. He says, So this is a unique teaching. Most of the times they'll say, if you do this, then you. If you do this, then you. So he's putting it on them. But here he's saying, if you do this, then I will see you this way. And really he's doing that a lot at the end. This is why I want to make this point, because we'll get to these some of these parables coming up soon, like the 5 foolish and 5 wise virgins. That's Matthew 25. That's at the very end. That's one of the very last ones. Another teaching about the talents or the pounds at the very end. And so he's teaching them concepts about themselves. Why? Because he ends Matthew 25 saying, hey, on that great and terrible day, I'm going to divide the sheep from the goats, and right hand from the left hand, and the ones on the left, they won't have really used what I gave them. They're going to treat people like this. Good Samaritan. Trying to connect all the dots here again this morning. But those that hear these sayings of mine and doeth them to anybody, like the Good Samaritan, then I will liken unto him in such a way, well done, thou good and faithful servant. When they didn't know they were doing it just to him. They were just doing it. Why? Because it was wise. And Christ says, I will see you, me, God, I will see you as wise. How can a foolish worm like Paul Martin be seen as wise? By seeing wisdom and applying that to my life. And so I just thought that was interesting. I don't know that I've necessarily read that in that particular way anywhere, but here you've got this. it just stood out to me. Christ is saying he will view us this way according to what we do directly with these things that he's been saying. And he's been teaching it in a way that is undeniable. That he had something that he was delivering here that was unique. I think all of us can see just imagery of the hurricanes on the beach. You know, we see it on the news every year during hurricane season, and they build these multi-million-dollar houses. I know somebody personally that had a house on the beach that just got destroyed, and they've just rebuilt a new one. They're getting older, so this one's got an elevator in it, you know, so they can get up and down to their 3 floors, you know, and down to the beach. And so, you know, pretty nice. But you know what? Hey, it could be gone before this year's over. Brand new. Why? Because it's on the sand. There's nothing you can do. Have you ever stood on the beach and you're standing there and the waves are coming in and your feet are on the sand, and as the waves come in and go out, you can feel the sand moving from under your feet, and you're like, whoa. One wave. These things get big and they're beating up on that shore. I mean, it's not going to stand. There's no chance. They weren't on the ocean, but they had the Mediterranean Sea. And if you've ever been even just to Salt Lake City on the map, you know, it's a little bitty blue dot, but if you're standing there at it, it feels like the ocean. And so the Mediterranean Sea was way bigger than anything like the Salt Lake. So it's like the ocean there. Even the Black Sea up north, the Russians go there for vacation. And it's basically like the ocean. So they have huge waves, and so same type of thing that they would be, again, universal concept. They would all be familiar with this, that it wouldn't be something they couldn't conceive in their mind. But we also know about building on a rock. You know, bedrock, firm. Let's look at Luke's account real quick. I wanted to make this point. Luke chapter 6. Part of me wanted to go into, you know, all kinds of different construction methods that they used back then and that we use today. You know, now they'll take big iron beams and hammer them down into the ground and do different things to make them secure. We've got excavators and all of those things that make it a little bit easier today. They had shovels back then. Verse 47. Okay, verse 47. Go back to verse 46. Even the end of very verse 45, when he's talking about the good treasure out of their heart bringeth forth good things, but an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. So if we're laying up treasures in heaven, then our treasure in here is going to be good too. And so the things we do and say are going to be good. And why call you me Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say? He's going to talk about that on the Sermon on the Mount. There's going to be many to me on that day that say, Lord, Lord. He's going to end his teachings in Matthew 25 that way. Lord, when saw we thee? And so this has been a constant theme. It's kind of like certain preachers that I know. I can go around, and maybe especially if I was a student at the School of Preaching and I got to hear them a lot, they have certain either illustrations or little phraseology or jokes that they say to teach a point. And you might have heard them before, but then you go around and hear them travel, or you listen to a sermon that was recorded and they say something similar. You're like, yep, that's old Jerry Martin right there. I've heard him say that before. They've heard Jesus say these things before. He taught them in different ways, in different times and settings, but he's saying, listen to me. Because on the day of judgment, so he's already saying he's Lord. I'm going to stand before you in judgment, and you're going to be judged according to the things that you heard me say and the things that you did. And many of you are saying, calling me master and rabbi and Lord now. There's only one that's good. Don't call me righteous. There's only one. But I am him. You're going to be judged according to these things. And if you hear these things of me, look at 47. Whosoever cometh to me and heareth my sayings and doeth them, I will show you to whom he is like. So Christ says, let me show you who he's like. This is how I view him. He is a man which built a house and digged deep and laid the foundation on a rock. Seems like I might have mentioned this before, but in Colorado, went to school at a university, and they had a electron microscope. And you can't just have those anywhere. Just anywhere you want to put one, because any slight, when you're looking at the atomic level, you got to be still. I can't even hardly hold a magnifying glass sometimes and read something or see something because my hand's shaking. Just I have to put my elbow or try to lean it up, get something, hold it steady. Try to see the moon with binoculars, got that little shake. No, you can't do that with an electron microscope. Just so happened that the deepest basement of our university, back in the day, it was built on bedrock. And so that is secure. You can have traffic above and around and do different things. It's still firm. And Luke's account is interesting because he has this concept of digging deep. Sometimes you have to dig deep. I am richly blessed by being allowed to be at this congregation for the last couple of years. During a difficult transition of my life and sorting things out. And as I've really looked at my life, as it's been peeled back, that there was some things within my own life that just, ways of seeing myself in the world and God that just were a little bit off. But depending on how you use those and how you think about them, they can really have an effect on you. If you live in a place that just slowly settles, kind of like Arkansas and our soil, you build a new house and then everybody, whoa, you're going to build it, boy, that's going to be great. He's a young couple, and boy, your life ahead. Oh, you're getting into this, and then not long, you ain't had the house that long, and some of the windows won't open or shut, and you see a little crack, and maybe the doors won't stay shut, and so you call somebody like Matt Franklin or somebody over help you straighten your doors up, and then you go there and that lasts for a while, but then again, different season, you can't get the windows open, you can't get them closed. What's happening? Well, you got some settling going on. You might be able to make those adjustments like that. You might do fine. Or it might start to settle, and it might be like CJ's, where the floor starts to sag. Then next thing you know, you start to have problems. If you don't get that fixed, boy, you're going to really have some problems. You might can do some tweaking. And that's what should happen when we look at the Word of God. Like James says, the brother of Jesus, half-brother of Jesus at least, look into the perfect law of liberty, and you say, ooh, boy, that window's not shutting very good. I might need to do some adjustments on that door or that window. I might need to do some adjustments on that door. Oh, I need to get somebody in here to jack this up. Or, sometimes, like it's been in my life the last couple of years, I'm tearing it all down. I've just had to tear it down. It's been a mess. Stuff everywhere. Physically, but mentally, emotionally, going through my memories and saying, how did I see the world? What's going on here? And I've literally had to tear everything down, and I'm still in the process. Sometimes I'll hit my shovel down, and it feels like, I think I heard something right here. I think I've hit some bedrock right here. And so, I got a few places that are like that, and I'm kind of clearing out my spread. So hopefully we'll have some construction happening here. But that's what's happening here. This man dug down to the deepest foundation so that everything that he built on top of that is going to be secure. And I would challenge anybody, never hesitate to look at your life, to get your ruler out, to get your level out, to get a string with something heavy on the bottom of it and see if things are plumb. And if they're not, man, get to work. If you got to bring the demo crew in, hey, as soon as I get mine finished up, I'll help you work on yours. Do whatever it takes to make sure that our house is secure. Because the trials of life are going to come. They are going to come. And that's what he's talking about in verse 26 or 25. I mean, the floods come, the rains descend, the floods come, the winds blow, and they beat upon that house. I mean, I don't know what your storm's going to be like. You may have already been through it. Probably most everybody in this room has already been through several of them. You've lost loved ones, close friends, family members, parents, spouses. That's life. Some of life's storms. Some of you have been through difficult relationships. You've with your spouses, with your children, with your other family, maybe with work. We've all had failures. We've had shortcomings. We've made mistakes, and so that's going to happen. But how we handle that, or the strength that we have in enduring that, seems to be directly in relation to our foundation. Not just our house itself, but the foundation upon which the house sits is what gives the house its security. He doesn't talk about the different construction methods. He doesn't say, over there in China and Japan, in the East, those wise people over there, let me tell you how they do the little tongue and the groove, and they stick it, and they don't need any nails, and then they can take it apart and put it back together. He didn't tell them anything about their construction methods other than upon what it's built. And so if we'll make sure that everything that we build is on and by the direction of the Lord, because isn't that the same thing that Moses got on the Mount of Transfiguration? Even though it was dimensions and materials and purposes, it was according to the blueprint. I got another sermon, I think I've preached it here before, but it talks about that. The plan, the design dictates what comes out of it, what's designed, what's made. And so here, this foundation is what gives the house its security. It's not the kind of wood it was built out of, how it was put together. What gives it strength and security is its foundation. And so we need to make sure that our foundation is according to the words of the Lord. The opposite is true too. Great was the fall of it. He didn't say, some of them they didn't suffer so much, or some people they had some of the wisdom of God, and so they no. It's an all or nothing thing here. You're either on the right hand, the left hand. You're either wise or you're foolish, and so your house either stands or it suffers destruction. Great destruction. So do you want to build a house that's really, really strong, that can withstand any storm, no matter how strong the winds blow or how high the water comes, no matter how violent things are? Job. I can't hardly even talk about it. I just lost a son. One son. That's all. He lost 7 and 3 daughters, all in one day. Same day that he lost everything that he owned. Everything. Nothing. And then he's got a wife that's nagging him to death as if things aren't bad enough. Never curse God. We know he was doing those things. He was offering sacrifices daily for himself and for his children. He was under the patriarchal age. He had a personal relationship with God. So much so that God brought his name before Satan. And so here you have this wisdom that's presented, and we have an opportunity to receive it or not. And this was the verses I was going to spend the least amount of time on today. I had a whole another class I was going to teach this morning. Started not to even go into these verses just for that very reason. Wisdom. If we hear God's word and do it, it might not, to everybody else it might not seem smart at the time, but in the long run, it's going to be worth the effort. It took a lot of effort to dig down that deep in Luke's account and dig down until you got to the rock. No doubt, it took extra work, but it will be worth it. With the time that we've got left, let's look in John. Let's read that account there. I said account. It's a different story, different parable. But let's look there and. John chapter 10, just look in verse 1. We hadn't had a bell yet, or have we? No bell yet? Okay. I'm going to get some water real quick. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice. And he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable spake Jesus unto them, but they understood not what things they were that he spake unto them. Then said Jesus unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep will not hear them. I am the door. From me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The thief cometh not before to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling, and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth. And the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. The hireling fleeth, because he is an hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. As the Lord knoweth me, even so know I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life, that I might take it again. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment have I received of my Father. A few things I want to point out real quick and make note of before we end the class today. So we said that this is the only parable that John section of parables that John introduces to us in his writings. It's a different word. Not that it necessarily matters that much, but some people don't include John's in the list of parables, and I think because John uses a different word it's a different word for parable. So I don't know if that's why they don't consider it necessarily a parable. Regardless, it seems like the same type of thing. For whatever reason, John used that different word. I'm not exactly sure. But regardless of that, we see the imagery, the picture that Christ is trying to present to the people. And more importantly, we see the concepts. Most every week I've been trying to connect dots. Christ taught this here, but he taught it again here, don't forget. Or we're going to look at this here, but don't forget he's trying to teach this message here. Especially in the latter part, in verse 11 and following, Christ does almost all of the things that we've said so far. He's using this imagery to help them see his relationship with them and theirs with him. He makes it clear he's the only way. I am the door. You cannot get into the fold unless you're led in according to my commandment. And I'll know who are mine and who aren't. And really, those who are really mine will know it. And some of those who aren't might not really know it. They might think they are, but they're not. And he makes that distinction. He's saying, I see you. Part of the parables is, I think he's saying, hey, I see you in what you're doing. I hear you in what you're saying, and I recognize that. And that can be good, or it can be bad. And so there's always that clear distinction. In parables, there's no ambiguity. You're wheat or tares, you're a good fish, you're a bad fish, you're one or the other. Good fruit or bad fruit. And so here he's saying, this is who I am. He told Nicodemus about being born again. He's already shown them pictures and imagery, but he's saying, this is who I am. This is what I look like. I am the door. You can't get in any way other than me. Not Muhammad, not Buddha, not Hare Krishna, none of that. Only Christ. I heard a really wonderful principle. You know, almost every other religious tradition acknowledges Christ as a prophet, as a great man of God. Every one of them. Buddha talked about there was a light coming. Buddha actually prophesied about a light that was coming after him. Muhammad acknowledged Christ as a prophet. They all acknowledge him as a great teacher. Christ says he is the one. So if they all recognize him as being something great, and then he says, I am the way, that'd just be more substantiation to show that Christ is the one. And he makes this clear. He makes it clear that he and the Father are one. He makes it clear that he is only doing that which he received of his Father. He made it clear that he was going to lose his life. He was going to lay it down of himself. And he had the power himself to overcome the grave. And so he's pointing these things out. You might not see them right on the surface, but if you notice, he's teaching some really powerful concepts here and our relationship with him. Questions or comments? All right. I love studying God's Word with you. I might have to go to the elder, see if we can just start double class time in the morning. Maybe we can get a little bit more out.